Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome to Proper Madness. My name is Sabby, and I give a unique perspective on mental health by providing tools, guidance, and knowledge on how we can better understand ourselves, as well as our past and present experiences, and in doing so, we can help heal our mental health. I get to speak with a variety of individuals from around the world as they share their stories from their journey through their mental wellness so that it helps others stand strong and use their voice. Welcome back, everyone, to Proper Madness. Today, I have Mikah Jones with me, who is someone that I have gotten to know a little bit previously. He is a very wonderful, very wise, introspective human being that has a lot of knowledge and life experience on all sorts of different things. So, we're going to be talking about a little bit of his journey. And I know that we have a lot in common, right? We have so many different journeys that we both have taken, but they seem to have the same sort of skeleton in a sense. I know when we talked last, you said that you took a step back from social media for a little bit, and I did as well. I think some of you probably already listened to Bryce's podcast, and it's kind of funny that I think a lot of people have decided to almost take this step back from their social media presence for a little while.
I originally got the idea to disappear from social media. I didn't say this in our first call, but it just clicked right now. Do you
Yeah.
remember Jerome Jarre?
Yeah, why is this? This sounds familiar to me, but I don't.
He's he's the guy who ran this big social media campaign to he raised like $25 million for Somalia because their
Mm,
water and everything was drying out. He's like this joyful human being from what you perceive online. Like his energy
yeah.
is very angelic and warm. I've met him. He's a nice guy, but there's struggles.
Yeah.
And what he found is that he was a person, like a philanthropic creator, that wasn't dedicated to content but was dedicated to people. So when he got to Somalia, and after he did some version of talking about the journey and bringing the people there that they raised money with,
Yeah.
he just disappeared, like for
Wow.
a year and a half, didn't say anything. He was deeply in this community, but after they were done being helped at like 9 months in, everything was implemented, the systems were there, a foundation was taking over. He went back to Europe and just got severely depressed.
Mm,
And I learned his journey was one of the very few that I found incredibly fascinating, because here you have as a human being that to the world, people think that they have everything.
yeah.
But in the same moment, I find social media speeds up your dark night of the soul process
Oh,
like
yes.
that.
Yeah.
And now to relate this to myself, for me, I deleted my first account when I was 15. It had 7 million followers. And I just said, fuck this. I didn't like how much I was being approached in public. I didn't like who people thought I was. Because, like, to me, I was just being one aspect of myself that
Mm,
I've already practiced enough throughout my life. Therapy friend is the thing that everyone likes and wants to be around and values in society. So everything else outside of those videos and occasional friendships, I did not participate being that person.
yeah.
I was very quiet or like super outgoing and like different things. I was like the kid that like if we're at the park, we're gonna dance around together
Mm.
or like talk shit and I'll beat you in a race. Like I was like those people. You get me? Like those are
Yeah.
different people, but those are who I chose to be. But I found with social media, my process for pulling away so quickly was I felt like people knew a version of me that I no longer liked, and that was the problem. So I decided no one gets to have this version of me, so I'm going to throw it away. Very selfish, very narcissistic. I pat myself on the back for it.
I don't know if I think that. I mean, because I too had actually something similar. I didn't grow my account to like 7 million, but I had about 10,000 actually, and then when I left, I lost like a ton of people. But um, I had the same thing. I was like, I'm showing up as someone I don't like. So I'm just gonna like get the hell out of here for a while. Cause I just was like, I don't like, cause you're right, it does speed up. almost your ego death and that process for you because you're having to be seen. I think about that, like, I wonder if that might be it. I don't know if that was it for you, but I wonder if that's because I think like you're talking about before, I wonder if it's that mirror aspect in a weird way with the dark night of the soul, right? Like, maybe it's not another person holding up a mirror to you, but it's a platform and people holding up a mirror to you because they wanna see you and they want you to be seen, but then I think as soon as you are seen, um, it does something a little tricky. I think you're confronted with your sense of identity in a sense. I don't know.
I'm getting like for me and my body, it's like 60 to 70% yes, the same.
Yeah.
There's that other 30% that is maybe a little different.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure what the difference is, but like disappeared from accounts a lot. Like that became a habit
Mm,
at that point. Um, I grow a page. I was the only one ever disabled. I decided to not do that.
mm.
Like my friend talked me off that ledge. They were like, that's incredibly irresponsible. Like, do not do that. So at this point, I just would, if I don't like the page anymore, I just stop posting on the page.
Mm,
I keep the account info and I keep like, there's a revenue that I was driving from it at some point. So I was like, I just keep it there. It's like a library that's built up, not
mm.
using it anymore. And then I gave myself permission to reinvent myself.
Oh,
And
that
that's where
makes
I think the
sense.
30% difference is.
Yeah.
Um, Now, the first time I ever like disappeared, that I think I shared with you on the first podcast that we did, is like
Yeah.
I said I was like 14 and I was doing like the model thing, and
Yeah.
then my account got hacked, and like by the grace of God, that woke me up, and
Yeah.
I disappeared for 9 months. Actually, how I got that Adobe brand deal. If you guys ever look at my Instagram
Oh my
page,
god, that actually makes yeah, that's cool though. That's really cool.
I asked them, I was like, where? Because I was like, mental health campaign. I don't even think I've said the word mental health in a piece of content in like at least 6 months. So I was like, apparently, if you go on TikTok and you type in mental health, my videos rank king.
Yeah, no, that's actually how I think that's how you came up on my I don't remember if I found you on TikTok, like, before Bryce even told me about you. I don't because I had known about you. I don't know if I saw you first on TikTok or Instagram. I have no idea. Um, but anytime I did see your videos, my brain did automatically go, "Oh, yeah, like, he's into mental health," for some reason. And I don't really know why that is. I think, like and this is a little bit of a tangent, but I think sometimes people relate self-help or like healing or growing in some way or even attachment types or relationships and some sort of self-integration as now it's like categorized as mental health for some reason. So I don't know.
That I agree with that because I think mental health seems to be like the marketable industry name for
Mm,
everything, right?
yeah.
It's like, but I don't like that personally because we're in the West, which
Yeah.
means like in the West, that also means that if I have an attachment theory, there's probably some fucking prescription for that shit. And I'm like, I don't like that. That's not my
No.
thing. I
You're
don't, that's, so I'm like, participating with like the version of me that's like, no, I'm rebelling against this.
I'm rebelling. Yeah,
And then
like the oh, I'm on the same bandwagon with that. I think like there's too many prescriptions for literally everything under the sun. Like I have a few friends that are on prescription medication for ADHD and I'm like, what would happen if you got off of it? I go, wonder if you'd be more creative. I wonder if like yourself would shine through. I wonder if like you would no longer hold back. I think there's some instances where like medication's needed for sure, but at the same time, we kind of live in a society that like wants to like slap a band-aid on everything and be like, no, just take this and all your problems will be solved. And I'm like, no, there's so much more underlying, like deeper within it, like your attachment type, trauma a little bit probably, and the way you grew up. You know what I mean? Like maybe like let's look at that first. So,
that reminds me, I saw this TikTok that was they were like there was two of them. I think I'll say like both of them because I think they're just really funny. The first one is this comedian, and like one of the first questions his therapist asked him was his astrology sign,
oh,
and he looked at her and was like, "No, no, Karen, no." And she's like, "What do you mean no?" She's like, "We both can't be mentally ill, okay? Don't, we cannot. Don't do that. Don't do that." And then another video that's like, oh, you're a Gemini. Oh, you're a Pisces. You're an Aquarius. Stop it.
Mm,
That's trauma. Stop it.
yeah.
Stop it. And I was like, it was like a 58-year-old lady who had like her bonnet on and was just saying that to people. And I was like, interesting.
My girlfriends were asking me about like what happened. They're like, "What was their sign?" And I'm like, I feel like that like I would say it and they're like, "Oh, that explains it." Like, I feel like it's something a lot deeper. I think maybe there's some other things that need to be addressed first. I don't think we should be saying like, "Oh, typical Leo," or "Oh, typical Virgo." I don't like people are like, "Oh, you're an Aries." I'm like, "Yeah, like wow, you don't seem as like like some people use crazy. You don't seem as crazy or like lively or bubbly as an Aries would be." I'm like, "Probably because I go, "I don't know. This is just me." Like, why? Or like Geminis get such a bad rap because people think that Geminis are like basically bipolar. They're like, "Oh, Geminis, they don't know what they want." I'm like, "I know a couple Geminis. They seem like really good people." I'm like, "I don't
I don't know. I'll give like a little a little tip on that for a second, because I'm a
please."
Gemini. So, and like, I
Oh,
don't know
you
how,
are.
but I feel like whenever I get labeled a Gemini, somehow they become a fucking doctor that's going to diagnose me for the entire conversation. They're just looking for more and more symptoms of
Mhm.
that to be true. And then
Yes.
they're like, yeah, that makes sense because you're a Gemini. I was like, is that going to be your answer to like everything that I say? And we've been
Mm.
talking for like an hour and a half. And that's
Yes.
where I lose all patience with that. Like it's like patience is no longer an ingredient at the table if you
No.
bring astrology to me.
No, no, I think we were talking about this last time too, where like some of the I love spirituality is wonderful and great. I think it's good practice, but then there's some people who take it to a different extreme of like using it as a cop out and escape for everything in their lives. And I think, well, Matt Rife got canceled for his comedy stuff, but he was right about one point. Like he did the stand-up comedy. I don't know if you've seen it, um, where he said you cannot be blaming the planets and Mercury and like your star sign for everything. Like that's not life, you know? Like you can't, that's not a way, it's not reason for you to categorize everything and people and then blame, everything that's going on because of that portion of spirituality, right? Um, I think I want to call like that portion of spirituality like the hallmark because it's like not reality. It's almost like this like shiny version that I think people want to rely on um, as a form of escapism a little bit.
And this is where I'm actually seeing like, 'cause I remember you wanted us to bring this up again, but
Oh
we were talking
yes.
about the caterpillar butterfly
Oh
thing,
yeah, yeah.
right? Um, there's I'm remembering this thing where it's like people who I'm gonna make an overall generalization right now. Enjoy and fucking argue with me if you'd like. People who participate in like, or people who are like just learning about attachment styles,
Mm,
astrology signs, this is what I call like you just became a butterfly, basically. If we're going to use that
yeah.
analogy still, like you are in stage one of healing.
Mm,
You just got equipped with this new framework, this new label system to understand yourself. And now you think every other fucking human being in your life, human design's now that new thing for people.
yes.
Good Lord. I was on that train for a second, but good. Like it was helpful, but it's not the thing still. Like don't get stuck there.
No.
And something that I think I remember you were saying was like you've experienced a lot of your life as like going from
Yeah.
caterpillar to butterfly.
I think I pride myself on having people on my podcast that like think like me, meaning they're not stuck in a box. Every person I've had on has their own like theories, their own personality, their own wants and needs, and they're just very individualistic human beings. Like none of them are like those cookie cutter, like, I'm gonna stay in the why am I'm making this hand gesture right now like I'm Popeye. I'm like like I want to be super politically correct because I don't want to offend anyone. And I'm like, but the more politically correct you are, in your whole life, like how much are you then stopping yourself from like having an opinion and your own voice and your own thoughts on things, So no, please sound like a martyr. But yeah, but I That what we were talking about, I believe, in um the last podcast, which for anyone who's listening, we tried to record a podcast once and we are like, this was what happened was it was two people who hadn't been on a podcast or talked to someone else like in a very deep way that's a stranger for a long time. And so a lot of we just shared a lot about what we had been through and it was beautiful. It was one very wonderful conversation. Um and in that conversation I had said that my whole life it seems like I'm never just it's never a permanent state of I'm in the cocoon and then I've emerged to a butterfly. It's almost like I'm forever cocooning and then becoming a butterfly. And part of that came from when I stepped away from my platform and I had done it a few times. And it was like the same platform, as you know, but like the name would change and then my identity and how I was showing up would change. I went from being just a writer and doing writing and not showing my face to then quote trying to be an influencer, and I hated that. I was like, no. I was like, this feels icky to me. And then I went from that to then trying to be really goth alternative savvy, which was still a beautiful time to express myself and live in that identity. And then again, and then I shifted and reemerged to where I am now, which is probably my authentic self, right? It's almost like I had to cocoon and butterfly at so many different levels in my life to then reemerge as myself. But I think we're always forever, and I think this is what I said, we're always forever going to be in the cocoon and the butterfly. I don't think there's ever one stage. I think it continues because I don't think you're ever done becoming yourself. I think that's a journey that, like, if you ever just become you and then that's it, that's very stagnant. We're always growing and learning and adapting. But I feel like your core identity of who you are as a person is something that you should figure out, right? A lot of people just figured themselves out pretty early on, and God bless them. I didn't get that. I had yeah, so I got a childhood where I was just told who to be my whole life in order to either fit in, be loved, or to be accepted, or that would be seen as successful, or even attractive. And on my platform, I was mirroring that whole journey in my life, but through romantic relationships. So, like, I had a really bad breakup, and then I just became like almost a hyper I mean, I'm very feminine, like I look very feminine, obviously, but my energy was more masculine, where I was just focused on becoming very successful and like making a ton of money and being seen as someone who just has it together. And the podcast was never part of the plan. And then I did it, and it took like one of my second or third episodes just took off. I think it was going through a breakup when you have depression and anxiety, and how that's just different for people who do suffer with that because it's a lot more intense, and there are some darker thoughts you have to fight, which sucks. But I didn't expect it to do that. But anyways, so I digress. So on my platform, it just took shape how it was meant to be when I wasn't trying. The second I was trying to be someone that I'm not, was the second I like caught on to it and I go into a cocoon and disappear for a while and go, this isn't who I am, because I got so angry at myself with how I was showing up. And I think my audience kind of noticed that as well. Because there were so many times where I was just like, guys, I'm gonna leave. I'm just, I'm not feeling like myself. I just need to take some time off. So I disappear for like 6 months. And then this recent time, it was like I was posting thirst traps. I was just yeah, I mean, I think the cocoon butterfly effect will be a forever thing because you're gonna have moments where you lose yourself. I'm sure like the next time it'd probably be when I have kids. I'm probably gonna like there's probably gonna be a moment there, you know? So you just
I want to help the viewer understand how
please.
awesome that was for them. So like
Oh, thank you.
there there was this thing there where I think like, I'm craving the definition for two things.
Yes.
What is the cocoon for you,
Mm.
and what is the butterfly's experience for you?
Oh, I like that question. I feel like the cocoons experience for me is like deep hermit mode, meaning if anyone, I'm a little witchy. I'm in that spiritual realm, but not in that spiritual realm. But I believe in the intricacies of tarot and how great it can be in conveying messages. So if you think about the Hermit card, it's almost like this person in a cloak, um, shining a light on the darkness. So for me, it's coming within and being very introspective and not allowing the world and my outside like stimuli to affect me, and for me to just go within and just live my life in a way where I'm not doing something to prove something to anyone. And on social media, that's tough. On social media, you're actively thinking about, should I post this? And so to take that away from myself was for me to come inside and for me to really figure out who me is away from everything else. So that's for me, that's the cocoon. The cocoon's very much hermit mode. Butterfly for me is okay. I've gone through my millionth dark night of the soul because you go through a lot of those. I've gone through it. I've done the shadow work in a sense, and if anyone's unfamiliar with that, I feel like shadow work has a ton of different definitions, but the definition to me is facing those darker moments in your life and those darker feelings and emotions and working through them and understanding why it affects you today. Um, so then doing that, and for me, it's not like journaling or anything weird. It's like me just every day thinking, okay, oh, that's how I react to that, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Well, where did that come from? And then diving into that. Um, and the butterfly for me is when I come out of that moment and I'm like, okay, I feel like I can breathe. I feel like I've shed all these layers and stories of what I was telling myself and what other people were telling me, that now I feel like I can just kind of I can be here and I can be seen. So it's almost like cocoon is like, I don't want to be seen. No one look at me. And then butterfly is, I feel good being seen because I feel like more like myself.
Wow. Okay. And here's another question to add on to that. When Butterfly is going through life
Mm,
experiencing challenge, but then there's like other phases where thirst traps, I'm just going to call it
mm,
another one, right? And then there's like whatever you experience yourself to be right now, which I'd say is like confident, grounded, and clear, which is how I'm
yes.
experiencing you.
Yeah.
And is this all the same butterfly? Like outside of change of external experience,
Mm,
is the butterfly, like the butterfly still has challenge?
mm.
Does it, when does it know to retreat? How does
Oh.
it, like what's that pressure point and tolerance of adversity and resistance
Mm.
that triggers backwards versus just a maneuvering to move forward?
I'd say it's always some sense of failure in some way. And that can be in many different facets for me. So for me, the greatest failures that I face are either to do with career, like my platform, like maybe things aren't taking off and I'm going, what the fuck is happening? I'm getting really upset and like disgruntled about it. And then or it would be through relationships. So if I experience any sort of failure in any of those two aspects in my life, those are moments for me to take a step back and go, is it because of how I'm showing up right now and what I'm conveying? Is it, and I start asking myself a lot of questions. And I remember talking about this to you, and I think I mentioned it on the podcast with Bryce, but it's almost like once things stop feeling good, once I stop doing things because they feel good and more because I want to look good, is when I'm going, something's a little off here. If I'm sitting here wondering what people are thinking about me 24/7. So it always has to do with failure, any sort of failure. Like I've just experienced some form of failure now through a breakup. So like it had me almost do the same thing, like retreat and cocoon and go, let me take a step back here and see how I'm showing up. So it's not always very public on my platform. On my platform, I think it was more of um I was noticing I was attracting a very different audience and I was really mad about it. Like I was like, "Hmm." I'm not trying to use Instagram as a dating site, you know? I was like, this isn't what I want to do. The butterfly is always the same, but I think her colors just change. I think maybe and this is because I'm a creative minded soul. I think for me personally, I've always been like cocoon to butterfly, but my wings never really had a lot of color. I think it had little splotches of color, but it seems like every time I go back in and I come out, there's more color. And then maybe there's like different little patterns on it all of a sudden. And then it's just kind of like an evolving butterfly. Maybe the wings are a little bit bigger, maybe they're not.
I love that. I love that
Thank
for you.
you. Thank you so much. I have to ask you the same question, because you also have gone through your moments as well with cocooning and butterflying, but I believe I remember that you said that they come in, I think yours come in like longer spans, right? Mine are quite short.
What I will say on the podcast record, probably 6 months from now, I will not believe the same way about it. And that has to do with, I think, the season of life that I'm in.
Mm,
When I hear that with the cocoon and butterfly, I know that very well through from like the age of 14. I did that a lot. Like, I'm gonna retract from the world, figure out what's going on, come back. And there would be clear external changes, clear things that I've learned, clear things that I've worked through.
mm,
But what I found is that that pattern deeply slowed down my progress and my tolerance to adversity and resistance was very low.
yeah.
And I didn't like that. And like for a while, I kind of like chalk all that up as like I'm a sensitive person, and I used to identify with being a sensitive person.
Mm,
And I do have sensitivities. Like I'm very sensitive to noise and like certain things. Like I have sensitivities and I honor them, but I use that as like a thing, as like I'm a sensitive person and sensitive people need to retract from the world. And like, I just use it to kind of like motivate that pattern. Right now I'm noticing that I no longer want to cocoon and butterfly. What I'm liking a lot more and where I'm at in my life is the thought process of there's a reason why a caterpillar only becomes a butterfly once. I am a butterfly and I've been a butterfly for a very long time. I am just learning how to survive first and now hopefully thrive as a butterfly. I have all my colors already. I'm going to have scars, I'm going to have wounds, I'm going to almost get eaten by other bugs. It's bound to happen. That's what I'm calling and that's what I'm seeing is like this new stage for people who've been in personal development for a really long time, and
mm,
long is subjective to your ability to learn, and also definitely environmental access of like community and choices and what you can even see as next step.
yeah.
Like I remember you were, I don't know if we said this before the podcast or on the podcast, and like I know we've been recording for a minute, but I'm not quite sure when you said this, so forgive me if this is a
No,
thing
it's fine.
before. You were bringing up like we were talking about Western medicine a little
Oh,
bit,
yes.
and you were bringing up this like the way that Western medicine is like still currently marketed is like take this pill, problems go away.
Mm,
Well, not necessarily go away. You may internally experience your life differently,
yeah.
which problems go away, sure, but most people's life aren't what they want them to be. It's just you're no longer bothered by the life that you don't like.
Correct. Yeah.
And that makes it's a very numbing experience I notice for a lot of people. And these are also the same people that or this same thing that happens in therapy for people. They're in therapy for years,
Mm,
longer than they need to, like a whole lot longer than they need to. And the problem is that both pill and medication and also therapy teach the same cocoon butterfly mindset. I did this thing didn't go right, I need to retreat, figure out what I did, dig myself somewhat in a hole, not in a
hmm
bad way of negativity, but what did I do? I need to get to the root core of this. But a lot of people aren't trained on how to come up and they
Mm,
never really look forward. They look down and take a step. And that's what I mean by subjective to progress. So,
yes. You know what I call that in like a very different way as it's almost like the perpetual victim mindset of some people would rather just keep digging than figure and keep digging to find the root. And then once they find it, they're like, okay, I'm here, but they don't know how to come back up, right? In a sense, that's alchemy. It's taking what you've just found and making it into something beautiful and positive instead. Um, and not a lot of people do that. Like, not a lot of people go, all right, let me come back up. Because I think Western medicine and therapy, like you said, need to be a little more temporary. When I was doing coaching, my goal was always like, I don't want you to have to come back to me. I'm like, I want you to have all these tools that I give you because I've asked you a lot of questions about yourself to do the digging. I'm going, all right, we've done the digging. Now make your ladder and come back up and take what you've just found, all these little rocks, and maybe just turn it into diamonds instead. And I've had so many clients that like, they're like, oh wow, like I'm doing really well. I don't know if I want to come back. I'm like, good, good. I'm like, I'm glad. I'm glad you don't have to come back. Because if you have to keep coming back to me, I'm going to question whether or not you're like relying on me as a little bit of a crutch because you're really scared to do it on your own. And that's the same with all that, right? It's like people will rely on, well, I need to even in business I've noticed sometimes like some people are like, well, I need to learn more. I need to get more information. I need. Almost like this source of consumption instead of no, take what you have right now and just use it as best as you can. And then when you actually do need it, because we all at some point will need therapy at some point to go back and go, hang on, I need someone to recheck me. Um, then that's fine. That's okay. Like use them as tools, not as vices, not as escapism. So
absolutely. And I want to like add on to that with the preface of like
please.
I just went to a psychiatrist this Tuesday.
Oh wow.
First time in years. Like years.
Can I ask what prompted you to go?
Um, there was some things that I was doing, like these like outbursts of emotion, and I'm like, what's this thing?
Mm,
What is it? And like I had a decent understanding, but in like I agreed with the people in my life, but I'm at a stage in my life where I know who I am, the people in my life know who I am, which means all of this is too biased. I need
mm,
a stranger to confirm this because it felt ungrounded, my belief of what I was doing.
yeah.
And it was just confirmation. So like I spoke with him for 2 hours. I paid for a 2 hour session. It's expensive. And it was great though. He was very on the point and we just agreed and we were like, you don't need to come back for a long time. You're good.
Mm,
And I was like, okay. I was just needing confirmation. He's like, yeah, I get it. That was probably what you were looking for. And I was like, yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
he corrected me a little bit, but yeah.
yeah, I think sometimes we need that like it's not validation, but it's we need someone else to also confirm for us like, hey, what you're feeling and thinking and going through is valid. Because I think if you grew up in any sort of society or like family system where that didn't happen for me personally, like I look for that. I kind of look for like I wouldn't say other people's opinions, but the way that they process and think about things because I want to it's like I have this fear of being delusional. I'm like, oh, I don't want to, I want to trust myself. I want to trust what I'm thinking and feeling about whatever situation I'm going through. But I kind of want other people's opinions that are unbiased. But what kind of sucks about that is like, especially if they're not like a professional, is people will just project onto you their own stories because they might hear something that sounds similar, and that can get so dangerous. Because then your brain's going like, what? What's
Yes,
happening? Yeah.
exactly. When you're a butterfly,
Mm.
you can become a caterpillar. I mean, scientifically, I don't know if that's a thing, but like,
No.
let's just say it is, right? You can participate in becoming a caterpillar again. Or what you can do is you need to figure out your way that's going to help you move through your life.
Mm.
And there's a thing that I want people to take away that's like you need to change your currency for how you measure your life. A lot of people have trained themselves to measure it on other people's validation, basically things that they lacked a lot of as a child, right? And that's fine. And I'm like, and you're listening to this podcast to some degree, you're probably already aware of the things that you do and why you do them, and you have all these labels for them. That's great, but you're stuck right now with that information. The greatest thing that has helped me stay a butterfly and not retract and repeat that pattern is I have completely shifted my entire measurement for my life to what goes on in this body. This is the instrument, the the navigator. Fucking, I don't know the language here, but like it's basically my measurement for everything.
You're
It's the
your own
it's
compass. Yeah.
exact. Thank you. I was like, it was a compass. I was like, that was what I was trying to say. It is
That's
my
okay.
compass for everything. If I don't feel grounded, that's worth exploring. Not downwards, but forwards. And if as long as I build a good relationship with this, I have no reason to retreat. I have the greatest thing on my side. This is the thing that, you know, I think we want people to be as loyal as our bodies are to us. Nothing in life is as loyal as your body. This is the first soul contract you've ever made is with this body, being completely manipulated, but it is in total unconditional support to your human experience. This is going to be your greatest vessel to move forward. It has the most amount of wisdom because it's the most encoded with your spirit.
Mm.
And that's what keeps, if you choose to live a life where your body is the most important thing to you, and I don't mean health, I mean the emotional internal experience. Does this feel good? Does this feel energizing? Or if it's fucking depleting. Those are the only two things that matter. Those are your two yes and no's. That's the body's language. It is your job to find the energizing things, and that's what keeps you moving forward. If you get stuck in the depleting things, you think your only option is backwards.
Mm.
But most people only know how to go backwards or down.
Yeah.
And that's where coaching, I think, for a lot of people is like we're the new part of the mental health industry that's like moving itself in and blooming. And there's like coaches that participate in this space for a monetary purpose, and that's who they want to be, someone who has access to a lot of resources and money, but
Yeah.
don't really have a desire to help people move forward other than this like logical education. That's my personal perspective. There is still another group of people that what I'm describing of like self-actualization seems to be the most appropriate term for it,
Hmm.
is it is you are taking full responsibility for your entire existence. How you show up, interact, and feel in everything in your life. And that's just like what made me really passionate about your butterfly thing. I was like, I have been a butterfly for, I'd say, the last 3 years. I have not hermited.
Mm.
And that has to do, I'm not gonna lie, I've had moments where like, God damn, I kind of want to move backwards. This is a lot. And I usually would, but I've invested in support.
Mm.
These are people who teach me that resistance is a good thing. Adversity is a good thing. And not just that it's a good thing. And it's not like when people hear that, I feel like they're like, resistance, yeah, it's slapping you. Keep letting it slap you. No, that's
No.
not the mean. It's, I've been where you are, and here's the way forward.
Yeah.
And that's something that like is monumental to pay for. Like people do that in business, you know. I want to be surrounded by people who make the amount of money that I want to make, have the business that I want to have. That same logic applies to your human experience in self development, period. If you want to have better relationships, surround yourself with people who have the exact fucking relationship. They may not want to be your friend, but they'll take $700 from you every single month and they'll help you get there for yourself.
Hmm.
That's incredibly valuable. Our human capacity is the greatest thing that we can possibly expand. It's what controls the leverage power, nourishment, surviving or thriving life that we have. This is the thing.
Yeah.
I digress. But that if you guys like self-actualization, fucking join us. We would love to have you over here. And if you're tired of repeating your goddamn shit,
Yeah.
that's the thing. This is the next step that you've been craving and your body's been asking for a while.
Yeah, I want to touch on one thing that you said that like really I think hit home for me, especially in like my current experience, is your body has so much wisdom, which is true. And I think for, and I don't know if this is, you can correct me if you think that this is incorrect, but I think women have a very innate tuning system to listening to their bodies because they have to create life, right? For men, it's a lot harder to go, let me listen to my body. I think men are brought up in this world where it's like their body needs to be something that they build. I had like this like visualization in my brain of like someone like carving out marble. Of course I'm thinking about a six pack of abs because I'm a girl. But at the same time, but at the same time, we all have that tuning system. For women, it's easier, but women doubt themselves more for some reason. I want to say, like, it's crazy you said that because a week ago, before I got broken up with, my body already knew something was wrong to the point where, like, I was like, why am I really anxious? Why am I not eating? Why am I not sleeping well? Like, why am I almost like I was like mourning I was like mourning, missing, and losing someone, and nothing had happened yet. And then when the breakup did happen, it's like my body was so grounded and calm. My mind was what was confused because my mind was like, whoa. My mind was trying to catch up with what my body already knew. Um, and I think a lot of the times your body knows what you need all the time. I had this moment last night where like I had my sad girl moment where like there's a spot by where my dad lives. My dad lives about 15 minutes from me. And so I go drive up this hill to this park that sits on like a really high like top. And I open up my moonroof. It wasn't raining this time, but if it had rained, it really would have made my main character sad girl moment feel just that much better.
Perfect.
If I was like, head back and then a raindrop hit my forehead. But I was staring up at the moon and I sat there and I turned off my music and then I just heard silence. And a woman in my dance class had told me, she goes, your body always has the answers. So just get really quiet and still and listen to what your body says. And my body was starving, like depleted. Sometimes that's our own like thing, right? We just want to give, give, give and not receive. But if it's depleting us and we're starving and we're ignoring that and our body's kind of mirroring that to us, then why aren't we listening? So I have that question. Like why sometimes do you think people refuse to listen to what their body's telling them? Almost like there's this mistrust with that soul body connection.
I would like to, instead of perceive it as mistrust,
Oh
because
yeah.
that implies that there's like people are actively pursuing a unhelpful relationship with their body.
Right.
There is, let's not lie, there is definitely a particular group of people out there that think that's the best way to go about it too. Everyone
Yeah.
thinks there's a best way to go about something. But there's another group of people that if it's not a relationship with the body, what is their relationship with?
Mm,
What is that relationship? So let's give like the most common ones that probably people are choosing instead of their body. Most likely thought narrative,
mm,
right? That's a very common one. People are stuck in some type of thought, and it's usually like this one thing, right? Like it's this one thought that constantly keeps creeping back up
yeah.
over and over and over, and eventually it becomes like something you think about enough,
Mm,
and that is just a thing to entertain yourself, right? That's really what it is. You're entertaining yourself with whatever this thing is. Another thing that people are doing is they're externally putting trust in material things. And
mm,
material, I don't mean like AirPods or like shit.
mm.
Like I mean there's that too. People are doing that, but then there's relationships, there's distractions of hobbies, there's distractions of media,
Yeah.
external worlds just continue to keep the brain stimuli like really disconnected from the body. And
Yeah.
your mind is constantly looking outward and projecting outward and getting information this way. There's no this way.
Mm.
And I'm pointing just so people know. I realized
Oh
this
yeah.
is not video. I was like, fuck, okay. When I'm pointing is like the brain is here and it's pointing outward towards the world. That's what I mean by external. And because there's so much stimuli coming back towards the brain, there's no time to go downward, awareness
Yeah.
to go downward. And when you choose to see that the people like that usually only listen to their body when the body reacts viscerally to something, right? Chest explodes with like a heart attack is
Mm.
one super ridiculous example. Another example would just be like fight or flight. People are like huffing and puffing, like losing their breath, right? And like their body's getting really tense or they're getting a panic attack. Those are expressions of like visceral reaction to something that's built up or something that's happening literally in front of them.
Yeah.
Increasing sensitivity is you need criteria to start listening to this.
Mm.
What do you like? What do you don't like? Oh, you didn't like that feeling? Okay. What is the feeling that you would like? Okay. I like this feeling. How can I make this feeling happen more often? When you get really focused on wanting to make this feel good and this is everything by asking questions of I don't like this feeling, I like this feeling, this feels energizing, this feels depleting, and you're committed to finding energizing things, you practice humility of looking at everything that you're doing that's creating depletion, the relationships in your life, your perspective potentially on those relationships,
Mm.
your perspective on your work, how you're showing up to things, perspective on yourself. These are things that you can look at and be like, damn, my mind is not equipped to like help me feel great. This nigga needs some work,
Yeah.
some real work, and not therapy work. It needs more like actualization work, like
Yeah.
clear mission on what they want to do, willingness to move forward and fail type of mindset.
Yeah.
I hope that answers the question.
No, that answers the question, and I think it ties back in the cocoon butterfly thing. Because when you
Okay.
were
Yes. Yes.
when you were pointing and you said not a lot of people want to come back in and you're pointing to yourself, that for me was like I was like, yeah, that's why I cocoon because like there's too much coming in for me and there's too much going out. And all that stimuli is taking me away from myself. So then I just cocoon and go, we're coming back inside. And I think like away from stimuli, away from the output and the input to where you're just with that stillness moment of listening to your body. And I think you're right. Like you got to figure out the tools that do that for you, right? That kind of reconnect that sort of still silence and ground you and um, help you to just listen. Like, oh, my body's reacting this way. There's probably a reason, you know. So, yeah, I think that was really it was a really good answer.
I
Yes.
there's a little bit of like I agree with Cocoon. Maybe Cocoon doesn't have to be as long.
Yeah, 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 that's true.
Like the assignment that I give my clients is like humility journaling.
Mm,
You take a cold, hard look at your day. What felt energizing? What felt depleting? These are your two overall categories. For the depleting section, because energizing, you just keep doing the thing. That's like
yeah,
pretty obvious. Just don't change that. Just keep doing that. From the depleting thing, you split that into two categories of what I liked and what I would like more. So what you liked, like I did this, I kind of get it, but it still didn't feel great. Like this still felt kind of shitty saying yes to go pick up groceries for my mom. I didn't want to do that. I should have spent $15 and have someone fucking deliver that, right? That's a thing. That's a thing for me. Anyways, and then what I would like more is like, okay, what is the thing that's more likely to get me access to energizing behavior
mm,
or energizing experience? And that's what I focus on trying the next following day.
yeah,
And just that consistent process for people is what builds the mind mapping for their brain to like, yes, look inward, but Cocoon maybe for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you come back out and you're like, all right, we're good. Let's go give this shit a shot.
Yeah.
That's the difference. It's like duration of time. If you're cocooning for 3 months, you've just developed a whole new personality over the course
Yeah.
of 3 months, but you've practiced the same principle, not high tolerance to resistance.
Mm.
But if you make part of your personality, I want to increase my capacity to tolerate discomforting situations and have humility to change them and power to change them, the cocooning time becomes less and less
Yeah.
because it's more ingrained into your bones.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the persona that cares about itself and can adjust itself accordingly to the environment as it's moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think like my cocoon moments have definitely gotten like shorter and shorter because I dislike them. I think I remember coming back to my platform because I felt this itch of like energy that was like, "Oh, don't really like being away for this long." Um, but even in my recent like situation, the cocoon for me happened for like a couple days, and then I was like, "All right, we can like it's time." You gotta push through those moments to then stand back up. If you keep if you keep going backwards, keep going backwards, keep going, but then you're just gonna end up in the same spot, which you said so very well.
I saw Evan Almighty recently.
Oh my God, great
That is
movie.
such a great movie, by the way, which is like Morgan Freeman basically plays God, right?
Yeah.
And is guiding these particular groups of people through um, their faith, perhaps in their life, from like an indirect guidance, mentorship type of thing. I'm
Hmm.
just not trying to give it away, but that's basically what it is. And I remember him talking to, I don't remember that lady's name, but the lady with the blue eyes and the brunette hair at the restaurant, and he was
Mm.
wearing like his like white like plumber outfit is what it looked like at least.
Hmm.
And he was like, when you pray for courage, do you think God gives you courage, or does God give you opportunities to be courageous?
Mm.
When you pray for happiness or a thriving relationship, do you think God gives you a thriving relationship, or does He give you opportunities to create a thriving relationship? I'm changing it a little bit, but the premise is the same. Our we can bet that the patterns of the universe and patterns of life seem to be that they are not going to do things for us, but they give us opportunities to do things differently.
Yeah.
If that's true, and we work as if that's a truth, and that's the reality, then I bet you're going to get to a point where you're probably having like 30, 40 seconds down. Your cocoon is short as shit because it's so ingrained in you, the version of you that's seeing this as an opportunity faster.
Mm.
The faster you can increase to see this as an opportunity and act on the opportunity, that's when, like, I don't know if you like Ram Dass, but that's what I think
Yeah.
he gets at with
Ramdas.
like
Yeah. He
keeping your heart hope open in hell. It's that moment of how fast can you remember.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. You know what is kind of cool is so I grew up with Sikhism as like my primary like religious belief, and then it turned into like spirituality and God and like this esoteric spiritual connection with like, and I said witchy, but like for me, to be honest, like if you're a witch, you believe in like the earth, you know, you believe in what's around you, you believe in God, you believe in all these things, all this energy that can shift and alchemize your life, like shifting and alchemizing those crazy moments into the cocoon to the butterfly. And I very recently wanted to like take a look into Sikhism and also like develop my relationship with God further as a part of just like like surrender, like just let me just let go. I'm like let me just not control this shit anymore. I'm like I'm done. I'm done. Um, because I became the person that was relying on this esoteric mysticism as a means for answers, and I stopped. I was like, I don't need to have the answers because I think the answers are within myself, and how you described is like the answers are in those opportunities that you're given. And you make the answers and you make the stories from what you are given. And when I was on Amazon, I was like, I was wonder, there's the like not a Bible for Sikhism. It's almost like this, like there's 4 volumes because there's 13 different gurus, but the gurus are like people who discovered Sikhism and just their takes and points of view on it. And then I saw something like that, like how can we take the hell like I don't remember the quote. I really wish I remember it, but it was something along the lines of that your life and your heaven and your hell is what you create from it. You know what I mean? Like you create your own heaven in a sense and you create your own hell, but like how do you do that in a way that meets in the middle where you can create what you need to do in your own life and with your own faith in yourself.
Just cue like 30 seconds of like Ram Dass speaking in this podcast, because I think that would add exactly to our point so perfectly. Like he'll
Mhm.
be like that sandwich piece to put this together for us,
Yeah.
because we did good, but I think there is definitely a 30-second nugget of him saying that out there.
Somewhere.
Um,
Yeah.
it's
Um
he's he's probably, I'd say, been um one of the only spiritual teachers I have kept, because a lot of other people I notice, they got to where they are mastering one thing without trying things.
yeah.
Michael Singer, if you know who that is, Surrender
Yes.
Experiment. I'm not a big fan of that guy. I used to be a huge fan of him.
Yeah.
He got there doing this one thing, surrender. That was his way of freedom. That was his thing. That's what he saw was the most effective way to become who he wanted to be. But, and then, we have Eckhart Tolle. He did the Zen way, right? And then that's the
Mm.
thing. And then Muji did his way, and that's the thing. Ram Dass is one of the only teachers that said, I'm trying everything because I'm
Mm.
greedy. There's a little bit of things I like about meditation, but meditation isn't the thing. It's not going to
Yeah.
take me there. I like a little bit of yoga. I like a little bit of this. I'm going to go on monastic retreats. I'm going to be this person and do this.
Hmm.
It's making the curriculum of life more full.
Yeah.
It's seeing it as a rainbow and willing to taste the rainbow.
Yes. Yes, exactly. It's a almost as like this openness with it, right? Sikhism is such an inclusive religion where it actually, and even in the beginning, it says it's like a combination of like several different religions because it took little pieces and parts of it and stuck it into one whole because they were like, oh, well, this kind of makes the most sense in our relationship to God and how we see God in the universe and all the things. There are some like cultural things that are quite, but to be honest, I see it as the cultural side and the religious side are very different, um, like vastly different. But the my brother's been really looking into Sikhism lately, so we've been having some philosophical discussions on it, and he's going to come onto my podcast.
Oh, that's going to be such a dope
This
conversation.
is it'll
Yes.
be the funniest damn thing because you put two, but because we have such deep philosophical like conversations all the time. We'll just go on tangents of because we talk about mental health, we talk about perceptions of people, we talk about masculinity and femininity, and we talk about all those things that people are scared to confront and talk about. But we have it in our normal everyday conversations. Um, so to have him sit here and do the podcast with me, I think he's coming tomorrow if we don't have crazy Christmas Eve plans. Um, and I think it'll be really cool. It'll be one of the first ones I do in person too, which I haven't done a lot of those, but I'm gonna shift to try to do more in-person podcasts. But yeah, no, I think keeping our heart open in hell is similar to going through those moments of not immediately cocooning, right? I think it's easy for us to go, let me go backwards in hell, let me close my heart, let me resist. But instead it's like, no, just keep your heart open. Because I think as much as people want to, when they're going through any sort of chaotic moment in their life, they're like, I'm gonna shut down, I'm gonna close my heart off, I'm going to cocoon. as the millionth time that we will say this, you can't and you shouldn't, because then you think you miss out on a lot of beautiful growth in that moment.
Absolutely. And the the interesting thing about the process of like closing your heart is what I think like thing with Ram Dass and keeping your heart open in hell and this cocoon analogy have in common is there was an idea that I this is for super nerdy people who've like done a lot of spiritual work already.
Mm,
Um, you can spend the rest of your life trying to shut your mind up, or you can get this dude with, equipped with the greatest fucking knowledge in the world, and he will start to become your best friend. And I chose that route because shutting my mind up was one great thing, but it wasn't helpful. Like I still
yeah.
had my issues and the thoughts didn't change. It's just I got really good at avoiding them pretty much. What I noticed is people who retract, who choose any type of fight or flight, whatever you do in those moments, when you are closing your heart, no one is benefiting from that. Not
Mm,
you, not them. You may be trying to prove a point. You may be protecting yourself. I'm just going to give some reality here. Unless your head is in a tiger's mouth, someone has a gun pointed at you, you have cancer, or someone has a knife at your throat, you are not in danger,
yeah.
period. Yeah, and there's other like different situations there that I didn't touch on just out of like trigger warning purposes.
Yes.
When your heart is hurting, that does not mean you're in danger. You cannot die because your heart is hurting from an emotional experience. You got to stop with using like treating your emotions as something that needs to be protected like your physical body. They're not the same thing. Your emotions are more, they seem to have more of a pattern of waves.
Mm,
They come and go. That's why like you're joyful one moment and then like I don't know, like let's say like you're 8 and like your sister fucking sticks their that's what my sister did. I'm using a personal experience. Um she won't listen to this. Um she put lipstick all over my computer screen
oh my God.
and I exploded. I was like I became such an unjoyful human being. But that was only available to me
Mm,
because it's a wave. Emotions are constantly cycling through our body, constantly. And if that's true, like let's say that's true, I've experienced it to be true, then what you really need to understand is what you want. Keeping your heart open, what is your heart open? It's what you want. When you retract and when you push people away, when you defend yourself, what you actually want is openness. What you actually want is deeper connection.
hmm
You think the best way to go about that is retracting, is protecting, is extricating yourself to some degree, you're getting nothing of what you want and you're getting farther from it. When you can get clear and allow yourself to actually peel the layer of what you actually want, look at your behavior that's not contributing to that and change that behavior towards things that are more likely to help you get what you want. It becomes easier to keep your heart open in the hell of life. It's a much easier practice. I can give a brief version of this example. I'm going to change names and a whole bunch of things just out of respect for people. I was in a friendship where we were getting to like this rocky stage in the friendship where we just weren't connecting. Like there was tension about something that was probably said a few weeks ago that neither one of us spoke about.
mm,
But what we did was I chose to be the person I'm just not going to talk about that thing anymore. And that was what I thought would be the most way to preserve connection and was choosing that experience. What I was then doing, and then he was busy being a person that's like extra defensive and like didn't talk either. So neither one of us are having a enjoyable friendship anymore. And we were on the phone and they just like blew up over something that I said. And in that moment, that feels like you're in hell. You're fucking afraid. You're
yeah.
like triggered as shit. What the fuck is this? And then like you have this thing that's like, I don't deserve to be treated like this. If they start to get mad and do their thing and
Yeah.
whatever, that's where the practice is. I know that what I want to the core. is to feel connected to them, to the core. That is what I want. If I do not lose sight of that, and I'm patient, that's a very important ingredient, especially when you're just starting with trying to keep your heart open.
Mm.
The answer will come to you. That emotion will pass, and you will be relaxed enough to act, to love, to be patient, to be curious, to apologize. That's the state that you want to get to. That's what moves you forward. That's a butterfly that didn't turn into a cocoon at night, but actually just slept on the tree as a butterfly with the moon shining on it in that perfect angle like it does in the movies. You know, that whole like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
that's so aesthetic. That, right?
I
That's the
had that
thing.
moment last night, and I was like, "Wow, look at the moon and the stars."
Exactly.
No, you're right. I I agree with that so wholeheartedly. When you keep your heart open and you have patience, I think, with another human being to just try to connect with them, and all they do is want to retract, it's the irony is they wanna they wanna connect with you just as badly as you do. They just don't know how to do it. And it's a very hard switch to flip internally for anyone who's not used to doing it, like you said. If you're not used to keeping your heart open and going, okay, let me sit through this discomfort. Let me figure out a way to connect. Um, you're never really, honestly, you're never really going to. Because I used to be that person where I almost so badly craved intimacy and connection and chasing this spark and click with someone. But what was the irony behind it is my mind wanted it so badly. My heart wasn't open enough to even accept it and to see it. And so the moment that that's placed in front of you, your mind tries to like rationalize and you got to get out of here, get out of, I'm slapping my head. You got to get out of your head and get into your heart and literally think with your heart. I think society tells people like, you have to listen to your head and your heart. You listen to your heart first, and then you check in with your head. And if that aligns, then I think you're fine. But if like you check in with your heart and your brain's trying to almost debate what your heart's feeling, it's your brain that's a little fucked up, not your heart. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like your brain is the one that's going, I don't know about this. I'm not sure. And then it jumps into that logical, like, analytical place.
Exactly. I just want to laugh at something just really quickly. You were like, just your people were like, you have to both listen to your brain and your heart. You made this face that's like, shut the fuck up. Like, no, that's not helping my point. And I just love that. I just want to, I see that fully. Thank you for bringing that here. That was just perfect.
Of course. I was
I'm
just like
I'm
in
like
that
that
moment,
too.
I was like, no, that's not like that's not what's being helpful. Oh
Oh man.
God.
And this is, if you're one of those people that are ready to be honest with themselves, it's time for you to change out your therapist.
Hmm.
I full heartedly believe that.
Or or maybe go. Some people just don't go, so maybe you should. No, but it's
Right.
true. I think like a lot of people have their own versions of therapists. Sometimes they're not professional. Sometimes it's just the people around them. So if you don't like how you're behaving,
Look at the
look,
people around you.
yeah, like a good hard look. Because they will contribute to who stays in your life, who goes. They'll take away from your own inner voice and inner knowing about 90% of the time because of just not out of malicious intent, just because they're using their own stories and what they've been through. But their story is never going to be your story. So you can't ever listen to what they say.
Yeah. If you're gonna take a look at the community in your life, a question I started to ask myself is how often are they getting what they want?
Mm.
how often are they showing up as who they want to be? If that, let's say that's 15% of the time, then their advice means 15% to me. Now, what I can do is this doesn't mean this friendship is bad and this person sucks, because that's like justice
Mm,
mindset. Like,
yeah.
oh, it's not my job to help you improve. I'm sorry, shut the fuck up. That's not helpful to anyone for
No.
you to stand in that stance. And you're going to notice at some point that you're going to have no one around you
Mhm.
if you stand like that. What I've noticed to be a really helpful thing is when you notice the people in your life are not being who they say they want to be or say they are, and they're not getting what they want as often as they'd like, that is where your guys' friendship can peel to another layer. Who do they want to be? Are you willing to dedicate your friendship to them to help them have more access to that more often? How do you do that? You're going to fucking do that for yourself, and they're going to benefit from that. You can hold them accountable to certain things. You can give them tips and pointers. Sure, those are other options and part of dialogue and communication. But the best way I've noticed to drastically evolve friendships in your life is by you actively being who you want to be with them, getting what
Mm.
you want when you're with them. And that's not always external. Want is the internal thing. Remember, it's the body. That is king. And that is what makes all friendships bloom in the ways that they're supposed to bloom. Supposed to being like, that person's not ready, they don't want to change, they will leave your life very naturally.
Yeah.
Very naturally. People who do like that and want to be that will meet you at the capacity that they can. And that now blooms this new structure of a friendship. And then people who are all fucking in, you will feel that. And those will be the people that you call. And they're probably busy because they're busy with their life, but they will get back to you with so much love and care and intention.
Mhm.
And those are the most beautiful relationships I've started to cultivate. And I don't have many of them. And it's okay because I don't need.
I really appreciate you coming on and this conversation, and I'm so happy that we got to do this for a second time and have this conversation and have it in a way that like I think flowed so naturally and so perfectly that I honestly like I think it's a conversation that like a lot of people needed to hear.
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Mikah Jones, three S's. It's with a K, so Mikah. If you don't know how to spell Jones, I know what to do with you. I'm so fucking with you, Jones, and then just add two more S's, you lovely darlings. And it will be on IG, and that's how you find me. TikTok is Beyond Micah. And yeah, if you're interested in anything that I said today, send me a message or add a comment on some of my videos. I'd love to hear from you. And if you're at that ready stage, you will find my application in my document too.
Thank you so much for listening, and remember, you have to go through the eye of the storm to see the clear horizon ahead. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you next week.